My name is Emily Carter, and I am 35 years old. Minutes after my divorce was finalized, I called my father. I stood on the courthouse steps, still holding the envelope with the judge's signature barely dry on the final decree. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped my phone twice before he picked up. My father, Frank Carter, built Carter Steel Fabrication from a single rented warehouse back in 1987. Over the years, he turned it into one of the largest structural steel suppliers in the entire region. On my 30th birthday, he handed me 25% ownership. He told me, "It's yours to grow into, yours to protect." I married Nathan Ross 8 years ago, and from the very first family dinner, his mother, Diane Ross, made it clear. She saw my father's company not as something I had earned, but as a resource, just waiting to be redirected. She never said it outright. Instead, she would say things like, "Family should look out for family." Nathan's cousins are so talented, it would be a shame not to use them. Over the years, one by one, Ross relatives and Diane's hand-picked associates filled positions across payroll, logistics, procurement, and even our internal audit department. My father trusted me completely. He trusted that my marriage meant our two families were now one. So he approved every hire I recommended, never once questioning why so many of them shared my husband's last name. It took me 6 years to fully understand what I was looking at. It started small. A missing invoice here. A vendor contract that quietly changed hands into a company registered under Diane's maiden name, there. Then larger steel orders, ones that should have needed 3 layers of approval, sailing through with a single signature from Nathan's cousin, a man named Victor who ran procurement. I brought my concerns to Nathan once, gently, over dinner. He laughed it off, told me I was being paranoid, that I was seeing conspiracies where there was only family helping family. So I did something quietly. I hired a forensic accountant in private and paid her in cash. What she found took 11 months to fully untangle. And when she finally sat across from me with the full report in her hands, she looked at me and said one sentence that changed everything. "Emily, this is bigger than you think." The forensic accountant slid the folder across the table. 27 employees, all connected through blood or marriage to Diane Ross, embedded across every critical department of my father's company. Together, they had siphoned off nearly $4 million over 6 years through inflated invoices, fake consulting fees, and a shell logistics company that billed us for warehouse space that, in reality, was just an empty lot behind a strip mall Diane owned. I did not confront Nathan with the numbers. Instead, I filed for divorce quietly, citing irreconcilable differences. I let that report sit sealed in a drawer until the ink on my decree was completely final. Some people might call that cowardly. I call it patient. Because the moment I was free, legally and completely free of any tie that made Nathan's family feel entitled to protection, I could finally act without a single ounce of guilt holding me back. Standing on those courthouse steps, in the gray blazer I had worn specifically because it made me feel like the woman I was supposed to be all along, I called my father. I told him everything. All 6 years of it, condensed into 4 urgent minutes. The shell company, the phantom invoices, the warehouse that did not exist. I told him to fire all 27 employees my in-laws had planted inside the company. Effective immediately. Security escorting each one out before the workday ended. My father was silent for a long moment on the other end of the line. Then he said only one thing. Send me the report. Within 20 minutes, our head of HR had a full list. Within 2 hours, the terminations had already begun, and thank God they did. Because that same evening, while I was still unpacking boxes in the small rental house as I had moved into during the separation, someone showed up at my door, pounding on it hard enough that my neighbor's porch light flicked on. It was Diane Ross. A woman who, in 8 years of forced pleasantries at holiday dinners, had never once raised her voice. She was already yelling before I even opened the door fully. Her face red, her voice cracking with a fury I had never once seen from her. She demanded that I reverse every single termination immediately. And she promised me, right there on my own front porch, in front of God and my new neighbors, that I would regret ever being born into a family that dared to touch what she considered rightfully hers. I stood in my doorway, in the fading evening light, and for the first time in our entire relationship, I felt nothing but calm. You need to leave my property, I told her, my voice steadier than I expected. She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound, and told me I had no idea what I had just done. That Nathan's family had built half of what my father called his company. That those 27 people had families of their own, depending on those paychecks. Families I was now, in her words, starving out of spite. I told her the only thing anyone had been starving was my father's business. Slowly, deliberately, for 6 years, and that the forensic report sitting in my lawyer's office proved every single dollar of it. Her face changed then, just slightly. A flicker of something under all that fury, and I knew, in that instant, she understood I was not bluffing. She tried a different approach after that. Her tone softened, the way it always did when yelling failed. She told me Nathan still loved me, that this could all be undone if I would just reconsider the divorce, reinstate the employees, and let bygones be bygones, for the sake of the family. I almost admired the audacity of it. The way she pivoted from threats to false tenderness in under 30 seconds. I told her there was no version of reconsideration available to her. The divorce was final. The terminations were final. And if she or Victor or any of the other 25 wanted to contest the loss of their positions, they were welcome to do so in court, where the forensic accounting report would become a matter of public record. That was the moment she stopped yelling and started threatening lawsuits instead, promising she had connections. Promising this was not over. I simply closed the door. The following weeks were harder than I expected. Not because I doubted my decision, but because untangling 6 years of embedded corruption meant rebuilding entire departments almost from scratch. My father brought in a sharp-eyed operations manager named Owen Reed to oversee procurement and logistics while we vetted new hires. Within a month, shipment delays that had plagued us for years simply vanished. Vendor costs, once mysteriously inflated, dropped by nearly 18% almost overnight. My father called me every evening that first month, sometimes just to read me updated numbers. His voice got lighter each time, Like a man slowly realizing a weight he had carried for so long, he had forgotten it was even there. Nathan called exactly once, 3 weeks after the confrontation with his mother. His voice was quiet. In a way I had not heard from him in years. He did not defend his mother. He did not defend the 27 names on that list. He simply asked how I was doing. For a moment, the version of him I had married peeked through the version his mother had spent a decade constructing. I told him I was doing better than I had in years. And I meant it. He did not call again after that. The lawsuit Diane promised never materialized. Her lawyer, once he reviewed the forensic report my legal team shared during discovery, quietly advised her that pursuing litigation would only invite a criminal referral for fraud. And just like that, the threats stopped. As suddenly as they had started, Victor and the other cousin left the state within 2 months. The shell logistics company Diane had used to bill us for a warehouse that never existed was quietly dissolved before the year's end, presumably to bear the paper trail before anyone came looking too closely. My father never pressed criminal charges, not because he lacked the evidence, but because he told me plainly, watching them lose everything they had built on stolen ground was punishment enough for him. Pursuing anything further would only drag our family name through years of ugly headlines. I understood that, even if part of me wanted more. 6 months later, Carter Steel Fabrication posted its strongest quarterly earnings in company history. Entirely staffed by people who had earned their positions on merit rather than by bloodline. That spring, my father formally named me president. He stood in front of the very same warehouse floor where he had started the company nearly 40 years earlier and told every employee gathered there that the company had finally been returned to the people who actually built it. I stood there in my gray blazer, the very same one from the courthouse steps, and for the first time in years, I felt like the company and my life truly belonged to me. Title: I fired my in-laws from my father's company the same day my divorce was final. If this story hit home for you, hit like, subscribe for more real life, family and business drama stories. And tell me in the comments, would you have waited as long as she did